Hi everyone, good evening. If you can hear me, please let me know. Just drop a comment in the chat so that I know that you can hear me loud and clear. So, guys, if you can hear me, go ahead to drop a comment in the chat. Let me know that you can hear me. All right, good evening. So, good evening, Hassan. Thank you. So, I think, yeah, Hassan can hear me. I think that's fine. So, every other person, I hope our week has been great. Apologies, our class could not hold the last time. There were a bit of issues and just had to have that fixed before we continue with the class. So please give me a minute. I would be sharing my screen. But while we're waiting for that, I would want to ask how many of you have signed up on the LMS platform? So if you're signed up on the LMS platform and you have started taking the course for Figma, please let me know. Just go ahead to drop your message here so that we know that yes, you have already signed up and you're taking your class already. Okay, beautiful. I'm seeing quite a number of hands here. All right, so I'm having a bit of an issue here. I don't know why this is happening, but please give me time. I'll have this sorted out. Okay, signed up, started the course. All right, just one person have signed up and started the class. That's not fair. Where's every other person? Okay, so I think we are good to go. Let me just share my screen now. Okay, so we are good to go. Oh wow. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen now. Thank you guys. So for the first part of the class, if you can see my screen, just let me know. Let's know you can see it clearly. So for this class, majorly, we're going into ideation and defining of problems. Now, for ideation and defining of problems, there are a couple of things that we have to look at. I know that our previous class we talked about user personnel, that was not ideation again. User personnel and some other things I really can't remember right now, but that's what we discussed. And for this class, we're looking at defining the problem and ideation. Previously, we have spoken and I have said that for designers, most times when you try to bring a product, you are building your product for your users and not yourself, meaning that you are not the user, you are just solving a problem. And meaning that for you to be able to build a product or provide a solution for a business or for a particular set of users, it means that you have to understand what these users want and how best to work with them to have this done and how to achieve it. Now, in defining the problem, it's more or less going back a bit. It's going to be a bit and back and forth because we'll be mixing things we learned previously with what we have here. Is more or less saying, okay, now we want to craft the actual problem or want to understand the problem before we go into ideation. Ideation is more or less the back and forth where we get to think the problem through, understand it, look at it from different angles, and then work our way through it. That's why if you have heard me say this before, I say no answer is wrong, no idea is wrong. Because when you're trying to solve a problem, every response, every answer given might just have a hint of how best we are going to actually solve this problem. And yeah, that moves us to where I will set the tone for this class. Now, for this class, basically, our topic says ideation. So, a relatable story I'll be using in this case here is we are going to be talking about a user personnel who I named Tolu. Tolu basically is a mom. It's a young mom who is working and then having to deal with her child and her daily activities, managing her professional responsibilities at the same time, taking care of her home and all of that. So she's going to be the personnel we'll be focusing on in ideating on for this particular problem. I think one thing I also stated was how do I put it? I said users are the foundation of good design, placing the customer at the very heart of the product development. Now, for this, we are going to think about a solution. And from our user personnel, we have then identified that first off, Tolu is a young mom, even though we don't have an age. She's a working professional. She has to go to work, and then she has to make sure that she drops her child in the daycare while doing other aspects of her life. So now, that being said, we are going to find out what Tolu's actual problem is and how best we are going to date on it, define it, and then provide a solution. Because if we don't understand what the problem is, there is no way we'll be able to solve the challenge she's having. Because if we jump into designing without understanding the user's problem, I guess we are jumping into disaster, because we didn't go above surface level. We just went with the, oh, this is what I feel she needs, and that is that, and we should work on it. So now the major problem here in this particular statement is, what do I start from? Okay, let's start from context. The user. So Tolu's problem is she needs a new way to manage her schedule, because putting everything together, it's kind of, how do I put it, it's vague. If I say that, okay, Tolu's problem is looking for a new way to manage her schedule, that particular problem statement is vague. Because remember, your last class we said we have to talk about the problem statement, define the problem statement, and work from there. So just saying Tolu needs a feature to manage her schedule is vague. It means that we now have to go into details so that we give more specifics to her struggle. And from what is here, if you can see my screen, I wrote Tolu, a working mother, struggles to effectively manage her complex childcare and work schedules on her phone, because she has to switch between school portals, daycare calendar, and work email, and it's time consuming, prone to errors. If this problem remain unsolved, she risks have missing critical appointments, experiencing increased delay stress, and feeling overwhelmed by her numerous responsibility, impacting her overall well-being. Now, this is the actual problem statement. We are no longer in the fact that we're saying, oh, she needs a new feature. A new feature can be for what exactly? She has a lot of things going on. But with this, when we now refine it to understand what she's actually going through, then dig deeper to see her pain points, what she needs solves, and how best to go on. We then tend to give it this context where we introduce more things and then pick out the part that she really wants to solve and how best we are going to do that. Now, one thing that is clear here is the struggle between switching for apps, because from the problem statement we realize that she's switching from school portals to a daycare calendar, then to her work email, which is having a lot of things going on at the same time. And the way it's going to be, she's likely going to miss an appointment, which is going to cost her, and then the overall human health. Please excuse me. So now, one thing, after identifying her problems, which is defining the actual problem, now we're going to go on to ideation and understanding how best would move. Now, I think when we touched on journey maps, we didn't go deep into what journey maps is or where. Let's say we didn't go deep into what journey maps were. So for this place, I would say we're going to look at journey map. Now, journey map is simply the visualization of how you move a person from point A to point B, or from point B to point C, so that they are able to accomplish a particular goal. So, in real sense, I would go on later to show you an example of an actual user map, because this is not the perfect example here, but I just had to put this because if you can see the trophy at the end, it means that whoever is going to get this trophy is going to move from here to the point at which the trophy is. And that is basically how user journey map works, just showing how we move from point A to point C. And in the moving from point A to point C, we have to identify again in that journey map, what is the person thinking, how are they feeling, what are questions they might have, and how best can we put all of this into the journey map. Now, one thing you have to understand about the user journey map is that it has different levels. It has the user actions, the thoughts, the mindset, the emotional line graphs, and the likes. So I might just go ahead to search it here. Then I would share my screen so that you see what I mean. So just give me a minute. Let me do that. Okay. So, okay. For a minute now, I'm going to use this particular one here. I hope it loads up. Okay, perfect. So just give me a minute. I'll share the screen so that you see what I mean. Now, in creating your user journey map, there are tools that you can use in the to do that. We have Mirror. We also have Whimsica. You learn about these cool tools as we progress. But for I don't know what's up with my network. Okay, so you learn about these tools as we progress. So I would come back to show you what the user journey map is. So for the journey map, I explained that there are phases, and yeah, I'll start with phase one. Phase one of this user journey map is for using Tolu as a case study. We're saying, okay, it's the morning rush because she has to go to work, she has to do daycare, she has to drop her children and all of that. Then another thing we'll focus on the journey map is users action. So why do they perform certain action at certain phase? Now, for Tolu, she performs the action of a daycare because obviously she has to drop her child at a daycare. She performs the function of going through her work mail and all of that because she's a professional who is working. So she has to do that as well. And at different stages, she has to go through all three so that she doesn't miss any. And then she keeps up with it. Now, in all of this, remember, she's a person. So she has a thoughts slash mindset which would come into play because now we're going to consider, okay, how is she able to do all of this? What is her mindset? What in what way is she motivating herself to say, okay, I'm going to do this and I have to do it the right way, or I'm going to make sure I don't miss an appointment or anything like that. Yeah. So that's something that comes to mind as well. And after that, another thing you have to consider is, okay, the pain points. What are her pain points? What are her emotional and at what point is she let's say think, see, feel, touch? What is she thinking at each point? How is she feeling at each point? So those are what the phases are. And still on the other side, you'd see that there's a clear map. The phase one of our action, which we call, that's the phases, we say multiple schedule to check the apps. So at this phase one, her emotion here is stressed and anxious because when you're doing all of this, you have to make sure everything is correct and you don't make mistakes. For the phase two is at work, checking using the company's email to make sure that, okay, everything is fine, I'm managing my mail well, I'm responding to messages. At that point, she's neutral and then she's focused. So once you have that mapped out, you can then move on to the next part. Now, one thing we have to understand is still on ideating a problem. Now we have mapped out the user journey to a particular extent and we are going to like pause there. Another thing we have to also understand is the user goals. At each point, when we choose to design for users, we have to focus on what users want and how best to work with them. And then remember, there's empathy. You have to be empathetic towards your users so that you can understand their demands and all of that. And then it now leads us to, okay, if we are going to meet users' goal, there are certain layers to their goals, or there are certain categories we can choose to group how users' goals are. But one thing you have to notice that for each user, their goals are, how do I put it? Each goals is interlinked because we're looking at functional goals. In terms of functional goals, we are saying, okay, it has to be straightforward. What tasks do the users want to complete? We are saying, okay, for emotional goals, we're looking at their feelings. How is this person feeling? How do they want to work with this? How at this point, what is their mindset? Are they feeling happy? Are they relieved? Are they confident? And all of that. Then we go to the last goal, which is aspirational. So here they're thinking about, okay, the long-term effect of their interaction. Now we know that for certain products, it might just be a short-term goal. I want to do this, and then once it's done, I am done with the particular app. Or I just want to, let's say short-term, I want to book a Bolt or an Uber. I'm going somewhere and I just need to get there. Now, short-term is me making sure that I get to where I want to go to. There's no long-term goal in booking an Uber because I just need to get somewhere and go back go back home or go back to wherever I'm coming from to settle that. And remember, Tolu still exists in all of this. If we choose to link the functional goals back to Tolu to understand that, oh, okay, how is she doing at this point? I would like you guys to drop a comment in the chat. If we say functional goals, remember Tolu. What would be her functional goal at this point? We're saying functional goal is what she needs to complete the action or complete a task. At this point, what is a functional goal she would have? You can go ahead and drop a message. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I am just seeing, okay, Hassan said quality is not clear. Oh wow, I'm sorry about that. That might be network, but just in case, I would also share this material with you so you can also go through it at the end of the class as well. So at this point, I'm asking, what is one functional goal we believe that Tolu should have? We have established that Tolu is a working class mom. She has a child she drops in daycare. She has others that are in the school portals. That school, that she has her job. So, what is one function Tolu hopes to achieve at this point? So, if you're following me, I would expect an answer. So, I'll give us 1 or 2 minutes for us to answer that particular question. So, guys, I just want to be sure you're following me and you are not lost. I really would have loved if this was an interactive class, but I didn't get enough people respond to the poll that was dropped. Okay. Taking the kids to the daycare in the morning, taking her child to the daycare in the morning. Yes, that is part of it. Yes. Okay, so that's one part of it. So there are other aspects, but yes, that is one part. Taking her kids to the daycare in the morning. So we have taken her kids to the daycare in the morning. That's one part of it because she wants to be able to manage her child's calendar. Another thing for functional is track appointments, be it for her children or her workplace. She has to be also she should be able to track it. Also note that yes, she has to track her appointments and then communicate effectively with both her children's schools and her workplace. Now for emotional goal, what is her emotional goal at this point? Because she's looking for a solution. So it means she has an emotional goal. What does she want to solve at this point emotionally? So you can still, okay, Emmanuel, make sure she's focused at the workplace. Very true. Going to the office as early as possible. Also correct. So now for the emotional aspect of Tolu's life, how best? What is that emotional thing she has to balance basically? So guys, not being stressed out at the end of the day, very correct. Thank you, Taiwo, for that. What else again? Okay, to be effective, desire to effectively carry out her work without going through fatigue. Very, very, very true. So for the emotional part, yes. So first off, she has to feel competent, meaning that she has to be sure that okay, she's not stressed out, because having to navigate through all these things, obviously she's going to be stressed out. She's going to burn out if she's not careful, and then in all of this, she also has to should I say, remain calm in the chaos, because she has to make sure that, okay, even though I'll be navigating through this and this and this, I should be able to be calm as well. Able to have, Emmanuel said, able to have time for her child as well. Very true. So in all of this, we're now establishing that for emotional function of this, she shouldn't be stressed at the end of the day. She has to carry all her tasks effectively without going through fatigue, and then she also also have time for her child. Because yes, but another thing is that she also needs time for herself, because this is now a whole lot and then she's all in it. And then the aspirational goal at this point, aspirational goal is basically long term or short term goals at this point. So what is it at this point? So let me still go ahead to see what would have in the chat. Okay, I'm able to have time for a child. So okay, that was the last one. So for her aspirational goal at this point, I like that the fact the class is still interactive, even though no, we're not meeting our. Okay, so what is our goal? You can go ahead and drop your answers in the chat. Let's pick it up from there. So okay, keeping her job, very important. Desire, thank you. So that's keeping her job is very, very important here as well. I think another thing you say, being a good mother, because she should be able to handle her job and her children and still be a good mother, and yes, able to achieve everything successfully. Emmanuel, yes, that is also correct as well. And then she should be able to build her career while going through all of this without slacking. So yes, then I think her ultimate desire would be a sense of overall well-being and achievement, both personal and professional life, which is correct. And then for each answers you have dropped here, thank you so much for everyone that's responsive responding. So manage her child education well, very important as well. So once she has been able to, now we have been able to establish the functional goals, the emotional goal, and the aspirational goals in solving her problem, meaning that we are now going deeper into the problems. So now we have established these goals, we have established the core problem statement. It means that we are not just building a calendar in quote, or it means that we won't be building an app because it has to be an app. But what we are also designing for, if we're looking at the think, see, and feel aspect, is that we are designing an app to help her manage her life, but at the same time, it should bring relief and confidence to her so that she understands that, oh, at the end of the day, I can do all of this and not get overwhelmed and all of that. There's also an assignment here. Then a poll will be put out again for an interactive class, probably for next week, but you get it. So as much as possible, respond to it. If I can get 15 people feel say yes for that poll, I think we can go ahead with it. Then now that we have established the problem, we have defined what the problem is, and to a large extent, we know what we are trying to solve. I think the next part here we're moving to the ideation technique. Now, for ideation technique, like I said earlier, it's more about brainstorming, bringing ideas together to see how well we can solve this problem. Now, the thing is, in brainstorming, we don't only have designers brainstorm. You can have a room of designers, engineers, as well as product managers when we are brainstorming for a particular problem. Why we do all of this in the ideation part or the brainstorming aspect of a particular app of trying to solve a problem is that there are certain suggestions a designer might feel is possible, but then interacting with the engineering team, you will understand that that particular thing might not be possible because of the complexities, and then it means that we have to find another way around it to have it solved, or better still, remove it, and then the product managers will just work with everybody to understand that, okay, this is what we are trying to achieve and this is how best is going to achieve. Now, at the first stage of brainstorming, we have everybody bringing in their ideas. I don't know, there are pictures, you see a lot of sticky notes on the board. I can liken that to an ideation session because as everybody is thinking, everyone has a sticky note. You write out what you feel, and then we start filling it out on the think, see, feel, and yeah, think, see, feel, and touch at that point. So when we fill it out, we now come back to look at it and see how best we are going to work with it. And then another thing that comes to mind is how might we, that's HMWs. These questions are powerful because we are not just saying, is user A going to work or is user B going to do this? Like we said, even if you're interviewing your users, you don't ask them a yes or no question. Basically, you give them an open-ended question so that they are able to tell you more. And even in the brainstorming, as when we're brainstorming to solve a particular problem, whoever is leading that brainstorming session would ask more of open-ended questions because, like I would repeat again, no answer is wrong, every answer is kind of correct at this point. We're just trying to shuffle things and make sure that we get the best solution. So even in the most serious answer, there might just be a glimpse of truth there. And here we're saying, okay, so which action is the user going to take? Which action is she going to perform? So the example is here is how might we help Tolu feel less stressed about her schedule, because we have already identified that her schedule is an issue. She's trying to solve, make sure that their schedule is good, and she's trying to achieve her goals. Fine, fine, and then live her life, be an exemplary mom, don't be burnt out, and manage all of this. So it means that, so how are we going to do that for her, and how do we help that happen? Now it now moves on to the part I refer to as the crazy eight sketching. Now there are a lot of things about the crazy eight sketching. If you sketching, so at this point you might have seen sketches where someone just draw a picture on a piece of paper and then sketch things there. So in this place, at this particular point, we're sketching out what we expect her to do. Okay, it's an app. If she's going to log into an app, let's say the team agrees that it's an app. If she's going to log into that particular app, how is she going to log in? What are the first things are we what things are she is she going to see what she when she log in? Is it like she's going to say, oh, plan your calendar, or what will you be using this app for? Like, you have to put things in place to know that, okay, we are tailoring this to solve her need. And then another thing to note here is that we don't okay, one person might have a problem and speak up, and then a lot of people also have that problem. But before you go on to say, okay, I want to solve, you might to go ahead to carry out a survey, at least maybe a qualitative survey, to be sure that you have a large population of people facing this particular problem, and that's why we are going to solve it. Now, since we're sketching, we're trying to understand that, okay, so we have all these ideas here which we have gotten from brainstorming. So now we are just sketching. We have selected which is important and which is not important, or we have prioritized them according to level of priority, high and low, and then we're working with the sketches. Now we're going to have to create storyboards, we're creating mood boards, we're creating wireframes. Now, these are all terms that would be explained later on. But these are what has to be created to understand that, okay, yes, this is what we're doing. So at this point, it's more like it's going to be a very fast scenario, because I am sketching to say, okay, this is the problem she has, this is what we have, this is the pain points she has, how are we linking, or her being stressed to her not being stressed, what is the best way to link our apps together, how do we get the school calendar integrated into this app, how best can this action happen, so that we not only help her stay organized and live her life, would make sure that she saves her energy, she feels relief, and she's not at another emotional breakdown while trying to manage all of this going on at the same time. Yeah. So that's one part of it. And then another thing to look at is I won't say closer reflection here. I think there's a mix of, okay, yeah. So another thing to look at now is, okay, we have looked at Tolu, we have understood our problem, and to a large extent, we have brainstormed and we have sketched through what she's supposed to do, or what we feel is the best way to help Tolu at this point. So we're saying, as I close down on this, I hope it's clear enough. But if not clear, please go ahead and drop your questions in the chat and would answer it. So one thing we have learned in ideating and defining our problems is that it's best bet we understand the actual problem we are solving. We shouldn't give vague responses, because if I'm saying, oh, she's stressed, she wants to solve it, that is vague. It's not deep enough to understand. And remember, our designs are human centric, meaning that we have to understand the humans that we are solving a problem for, and not just go ahead and do what we feel. Remember, user journey. I don't know if my network has this open. It hasn't yet opened up, but okay, it hasn't opened up yet. I don't know why it's taking a lot of time. Okay, so give me a minute. I think it has opened up. So let me just show you. So I'll be switching my tabs. Give me a minute. Oh, okay, perfect. You can see my screen. So this is what the user story is like. You're moving from stage one to stage two to stage three to stage four, and you're seeing objective needs, feelings. This is just what your user journey map is all about. We're having emotions, the emotions come up here. The emotions come up here, and yeah. So you see the icons, the thumbs up, and all of that. This is what we have here as well. So give me a minute, please. So mm, I would have to reshare my screen, please. 1 minute. Okay. Um, this is it. So, okay. So you have seen what the user journey map looks like. We have identified her goals and what we hope to achieve. That's identity goals, where we talked about the functional, emotional, as well as the aspirational aspect of it. And in ideating, we've talked about the different structures and all of that. So I think at this point, it's best bet that, oh, wow. At this point, it's best bet that we have understand the primacy of emotional clarity. So we are saying, this is what we have done so far, this is where we are now, and then we have to solve the other aspect of it. I think going forward, one thing we should take away from these first three classes is, because by your next class you'd start going practical wise, and then starting to understand all the theory and concept we have been talking about from week one to week three right now. So I would say, since we have now identified the problem, we have brainstormed, we have solved it, the key takeaways you should take from this particular class is that at the end of the day, UI UX starts with people and not pixels. Because before you should be able to go to Figma and start coming up with, okay, what is the website supposed to look like? What is my UI going to be? What is my UX going to be? What copy am I going to use? You have to understand that these are people. And then if we're using the personnel for this class, Tolu, we have clearly stated that for each problem that we have, it starts with one individual. And then we tend to find out that, okay, a lot of people are affected by this. And because we're trying to help them solve this problem, it's easy for us to have that survey and get that out. We understand their emotions. The next thing here is define the right problem. Always remember that a vague problem statement is not the best thing you should have. You should have something more, like something deeper. That's why we say ask open-ended questions. Because if the questions you ask your users, because you're trying to understand a particular problem, it gives you more in-depth about their pain, their pain points, what they feel, and how best we can help them solve it. Then another thing here we talked about is the user emotional journey. For emotional journey, we talked about how we are able to move them from point A to point B. We also looked at, okay, what are their the goals, their functional goals, their emotional goals, their aspirational goals, and how best to link it. And I think we also talked about the I think the ideating, sorry please, ideating and empathy, where we're asking how might we, the crazy eight, and then we put all of that together to solve what we need. Then moving forward, rather, once we have all of this achieved, we go ahead to again refine, create, analyze, and move on. And the last but not least for this particular aspect of the class is if you have questions, you can go ahead and answer. So, and ask rather. So, I think I would stop here. I hope my personnel didn't confuse you, but it was able to help you relate to ideating and solving the problem, the user's problem at the end of the day. So now I'm going back to the chart. Let me see. So I defining the problem and ideating. Hmm. Jah Jehovah. Okay, somebody is Daniela Esther. What are we humming about? Let's start from there. Then Henna Byro, you're saying Jah Jehovah. So we still have about 15 minutes before we come to the end of this class. So I'll leave the floor open. If you have questions, you can drop your questions. If you also want us to have an interactive session so that you can ask your questions, and then I will be on the call. I'll get another UX designer or UX consultant to be on the call so that we'll walk you through. That is also fine. So yeah, at this point we have defined our problem and we have ideated the problem. Yeah, so this is it basically. I chose the personnel of Tolu because I feel it's quite relational, and this is what we get to see in our everyday life or by people living around us. Okay. So Desire is saying the questions during the interview while trying to define the problem, should it be prearranged beforehand? I'm asking just for clarity, or is there a script that designers use? Now, the questions are usually designed beforehand, and there's a particular format you follow when crafting your user's question or your survey questions that would be shared with you. I'll look for that and bring it out so it will be shared alongside these materials so that you see it. The thing is, even though you have your pre-arranged questions beforehand, most times you cannot tell when a user will go sideways. For example, if someone had stopped Tolu and asked her, what is your major problem? She might just tell you that maybe she just leaving the school, or she just dropped her children at school and she's going to work. She might just tell you that, oh, she just wants to get to work. At that point, that is her major pain point. But if someone has met her in the office, probably towards when she was closing, and then she's trying as much as possible so that she'll be able to meet up with her, and then you can one thing you think you should tell you that, okay, I'm trying to close and get to my children's school, and this, that, and then you can ask a class to ask questions. You can just give her a bit of course and tell her that, okay, fine, work with her while she works and probably get some details and book for another session where you can come back and ask. Because even if you have your questions already rearranged, while talking to the user, she might say something that was not part of your question, and then what she's saying is relevant to the problem you're trying to solve. So that's another angle to it. But we have what we use to plan our questions. Um, Esther is saying, I think I'd have to rewatch the class for better understanding. I'd like an interactive session, ma. All right, that can be arranged. You have a poll on Telegram, on Discord, so if you can pick that poll, that's fine. We still have about 13 more minutes, so if you have questions, you can go ahead and ask your questions. Okay, so if you have your questions, you can go ahead and ask your questions. Also, the attendance link will be dropped shortly, so you can still go ahead and fill your attendance. Okay. So Desire is saying, so the designer's UX work deals with a touch of therapy and understanding users' emotion. I would say therapy. We would say psychology. It basically deals with the user's psychology. So I won't refer to it as therapy. It's basically psychology. How best do you think they want to take a particular action? How do they want it done? Is it this? If you remember, there was a particular class where I spoke about a cup, and I said, whosoever created the cup or the mug made sure that they put they put a hand to it because they expect that you should pick it up from the hand. But users can pour cold water into the mug and just fill it up. The their own mindset as well. Yeah. So that's it. Okay. So yes, coupled with observation, yes, depending on what you're doing, you have to observe the actions your users are taking as well. So if you can, okay, all right. So if there are no, and then plan towards an interactive session. Okay. Ma, please can you share your text in black and white? Okay, with white background, no problem. That can be done. So I think I would call it a night. Please go ahead and fill your attendance form. It has been dropped in the chat. So just go ahead and fill that particular form. Then you can also go on Discord, check under the UI UX channel. You can get more than 15 people to vote. We can hold an interactive session. So yeah. So that being said, have a lovely morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever your time zone is. You can always rewatch this video before our interactive class. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day or